Rain hammers Dublin's cracked pavement as Kiara Vale is dragged from shadow into leather. A black Bentley. A man who smells like gunpowder and expensive cologne. Pierce Gallen. 34. Cold. Precise. The kind of man who kills without raising his voice. She just watched him put 2 bullets in a man's chest like he was checking off a grocery list. Now he's staring at her like she's the only thing in the world that matters. "You live on my land," he says. "That makes you mine." She doesn't know it yet, but he's been watching her for years. If you're hooked, stay until the end. Drop a like and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Checks. The rain didn't stop. It never did in Dublin. Not really. It just shifted. Hard to harder, cold to colder. Kiara Vale stood under the awning of O'Malley's, a club she had no business being in, waiting for her friend Rosie to finish flirting with some guy who looked like he'd borrowed his personality from a cologne ad. The bass thumped through the brick walls, a heartbeat that wasn't hers. She should have stayed home, should have finished the essay on Victorian literature that was due Monday, should have done a lot of things, but Rosie had begged, and Kiara had always been bad at saying no to people who actually wanted her around. The alley beside the club was dark, wet, the kind of place where nothing good happened after midnight. Kiara pulled her jacket tighter, her breath fogging in the air. She wasn't drunk, barely touched her vodka soda, but she felt off, like the world had tilted 3 degrees to the left and nobody had bothered to tell her. That's when she heard it. Not a scream, not a shout, just a sound. Wet, final. The kind of sound a body makes when it stops being a person and becomes a problem. She turned. The alley wasn't empty anymore. 2 men stood under a flickering streetlight. One was on his knees, hands zip-tied behind his back, face swollen and bloody. The other stood over him perfectly still, perfectly calm, holding a gun like it was an extension of his hand. Kiara's lungs forgot how to work. The man with the gun was tall, broad shoulders beneath a tailored black coat. Dark hair slicked back, sharp jawline, eyes that didn't blink. He looked expensive, dangerous, like he'd never had to raise his voice to make someone disappear. He raised the gun. "Please," the man on his knees choked out. "Please, I'll pay." "You already did." 2 shots. Clean, professional. The sound cracked through the rain, and the man on his knees collapsed forward, face first into a puddle that was already half red. Kiara's hand flew to her mouth, but the scream didn't come. It got stuck somewhere in her throat, tangled up with her heartbeat and the realization that she was about to die. The man with the gun turned and looked right at her. His eyes were blue, cold, the kind of blue that didn't belong on a human face. He didn't look surprised, didn't look angry. He just looked interested. Kiara ran. She didn't think, didn't plan, just turned and bolted, her boots slipping on wet pavement, her jacket catching on the corner of a dumpster. She could hear footsteps behind her, heavy, measured, unhurried. He wasn't chasing her. He was following her, like he already knew where she'd end up. She burst out onto the street, gasping, scanning for people, for lights, for anything. The club's entrance was 20 feet away. She could make it. She could... A hand closed around her arm. Not rough, not violent, just firm, final. She spun, and he was right there, close enough that she could see the rain beating on his coat, close enough to smell gunpowder and something darker underneath. "Don't scream," he said. His voice was low, calm, like he was giving her directions to the nearest bus stop. "You scream, and this gets complicated." "Let go of me." "Not yet." A black Bentley pulled up to the curb, silent as a shark. The back door opened. The man, whoever he was, guided her toward it with a hand on her lower back. And Kiara's brain finally caught up to her body. She twisted, tried to pull away, but his grip tightened just enough to make it clear. She wasn't going anywhere unless he let her. "Get in." "I'm not Kiara." He said her name like he'd said it 1,000 times before, like it belonged to him. "Get in the car." Her knees went weak. How did he know her name? She got in the car. The interior smelled like leather and rain. The seats were soft, expensive, the kind of thing she'd only ever seen in movies. The man slid in beside her, and the door closed with a heavy final click. The driver, a broad-shouldered man with a scar running down his neck, didn't look back. Just pulled into traffic like this was routine. Kiara pressed herself against the opposite door, her heart slamming against her ribs. "You just killed someone," she said. Her voice came out thin, shaky. She hated it. "Yes. And now you're kidnapping me." "No." He leaned back, utterly relaxed, one arm draped across the seat. "I'm taking you home." "I don't... You live on my land." He said it like a fact, like the sky was blue and water was wet. "That makes you mine." Kiara stared at him. Her brain was trying to process the words, trying to make sense of them, but they kept slipping through her fingers like smoke. "I don't know who you think I am." Kiara Vale, 23, third-year literature student at Trinity. Lives in the groundskeeper's cottage on the Gallen estate. Your father is Dermot Vale. Your mother died when you were 6. He tilted his head, studying her. You take the bus to campus every morning at 7:45. You drink tea, not coffee. You read in the greenhouse when you think no one's watching. The air left her lungs. How do you... I pay attention. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. The Bentley turned off the main road onto the winding private lane that led to the Gallen estate. Kiara had lived there her entire life. Her father tended the grounds, kept the gardens pristine, the hedges trimmed. They lived in a small cottage near the east gate, out of sight, out of mind. She'd never met the family who owned the place. Never wanted to. Until now. "You're a Gallen," she said. "Pierce Gallen." The name hit her like a slap. She'd heard it before. Whispered in pubs, muttered by her father when he thought she wasn't listening. The Gallens owned half of Dublin and most of the countryside. They didn't just have money, they had power. The kind of power that made politicians sweat and police look the other way. And this man who'd just put 2 bullets in someone's skull, was one of them. "You can't just take me," Kiara said. "People will notice." "Who?" Pierce's voice was quiet, almost kind. "Rosie. She's 3 drinks deep and making out with a rugby player in the VIP section." "Your father?" "He's asleep. He always is by 11. He leaned forward just slightly, and the space between them felt like it was shrinking. "No one's looking for you, Kiara. No one even knows you're gone." The worst part was, he was right. The car stopped in front of her cottage. The lights were off. Her father's truck was parked in the gravel driveway, rain drumming on the hood. Pierce didn't move, just watched her. "You saw something tonight," he said. "Something you weren't supposed to see." "I won't tell anyone." "I know." "Then why?" "Because now you're involved." He reached into his coat, and Kiara flinched, but all he pulled out was a card, heavy stock, embossed lettering. He held it out to her. "If anyone asks you questions, police, strangers, anyone, you call this number, immediately." She didn't take it. "I don't want anything to do with you." Too late. He tucked the card into her jacket pocket, his fingers brushing her collarbone for half a second. The touch burned. "Go inside, Kiara. Lock your door. Don't go anywhere alone for the next few days." "You don't get to tell me what to do." "I just did." The driver opened her door. Kiara stumbled out into the rain, her legs shaky, her mind spinning. She turned back, but Pierce was already looking out the opposite window, his face unreadable. The Bentley pulled away, taillights disappearing into the dark. Kiara stood there, soaking wet, shaking, the card burning a hole in her pocket. She didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she told herself it was a nightmare, a bad dream brought on by too much stress and not enough sleep. She threw the card in the trash, took a scalding shower, and went to class like nothing had happened. But her hands shook when she took notes. Her stomach twisted every time someone walked too close. And when she got home that afternoon, her father was standing in the kitchen, pale and tight-lipped. "Someone came by today, Ma," he said. Kiara froze. "Who?" "Mr. Gallen." Her blood went cold. "He said you were out late last night. Said he wanted to make sure you got home safe." Dermot's eyes were hard, worried. "What the hell were you doing, Kiara?" "Nothing. I was just... He left something for you." On the kitchen table sat a box. Black, sleek, expensive looking. Kiara didn't want to open it, didn't want to touch it. But her father was watching, so she lifted the lid. Inside was a phone, brand new, top of the line, and a note, handwritten in sharp, precise script. In case you need to call. Her father frowned. What does that mean? I don't know. But she did. And the worst part was, she could feel the weight of Pierce Gallen's attention on her like a hand around her throat. He wasn't done with her. He was just getting started. Whoa. The phone rang 3 days later. Chiara stared at it, sitting on her desk beside her laptop, and a half-finished essay on Bronte. She didn't recognize the number, didn't want to answer, but her hand moved anyway, like it had a mind of its own. Hello? You didn't throw it away. Pierce's voice was smooth, unhurried, like they were old friends catching up. Good. How did you? I'm outside. Chiara's heart slammed into her ribs. She crossed to the window, pulled back the curtain. The Bentley was parked at the end of the driveway, sleek and black and impossible to miss. What do you want? She whispered. To talk. We have nothing to talk about. Then why did you answer? She didn't have an answer for that. 5 minutes, Pierce said. That's all I'm asking. Chiara should have hung up, should have called the police, her father, anyone. But instead, she grabbed her jacket and walked out into the rain. Pierce was leaning against the car, arms crossed, perfectly dry under a black umbrella. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine, tailored coat, dark jeans, boots that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. You look tired, he said. You look like a stalker. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Fair. What do you want, Mr. Gallen? Pierce. I'm not calling you that. You will. The certainty in his voice made her stomach twist. I want to know why you're following me, Chiara said. Why you know everything about me. Why you... Because you matter. The words hung in the rain between them, heavy and strange. I don't even know you. Not yet. That's not an answer. It's the truth. He stepped closer, and Chiara's body went rigid. But he didn't touch her, just looked at her, those cold blue eyes cutting through every lie she'd ever told herself. You're going to want to run from me, Chiara. You're going to try, but it won't work. You don't own me. I know. He tilted his head. But I'm going to. She slapped him. The sound cracked through the rain, sharp and final. Her palm stung. Pierce's head turned slightly with the impact, but he didn't flinch, didn't move, just slowly looked back at her, and for the first time she saw something flicker in his eyes. Not anger, interest. Feel better? He asked. No. Good. Anger suits you. Go to hell. I'm already there. He straightened, adjusting his coat. You're going to see me again, Chiara, sooner than you think. And when you do, you're going to stop pretending you don't feel this. Feel what? He leaned in, close enough that she could feel his breath on her cheek, close enough that her pulse jumped. The pull. Then he was gone. Back in the Bentley, pulling away, leaving her standing in the rain with her heart racing and her hand still tingling from the slap. Chiara told herself she hated him, but she kept the phone. Pierce Gallen didn't leave her alone. Over the next 2 weeks, he was everywhere. Not physically. He didn't show up at her door again, didn't call. But his presence was constant, oppressive, impossible to ignore. A flat tire on her way to campus. A black SUV appearing 10 minutes later, driver holding an umbrella and offering her a ride. She refused. Walked 3 miles in the rain instead. Got to class soaking wet and 40 minutes late. Her professor pulled her aside after. Mr. Gallen called, said you'd been delayed. I'm extending the deadline on your essay. Chiara wanted to scream. A man followed her on the bus. Older, greasy, too close. She moved seats. He moved with her. Her hand was on her phone, ready to call someone, anyone, when the man suddenly went pale and got off at the next stop. She looked out the window, saw the black Bentley keeping pace with the bus. Pierce didn't wave, didn't acknowledge her, just drove alongside until she got off at her stop, then disappeared. She started seeing his people everywhere. Men in dark suits, women with earpieces, watching her, protecting her. She didn't ask for it, didn't want it, but it didn't matter. One night she came home to find her father in the kitchen, looking shell-shocked. They paid off the mortgage, he said. What? The Gallens. They paid off the cottage. 30 years of debt, Gone. Dermot's hands were shaking. Why would they do that, Kiara? She didn't answer. Couldn't. Because she knew. The confrontation happened in the greenhouse. Kiara went there to think, to breathe, to escape the suffocating weight of Pierce's attention. The estate greenhouse was massive. Glass walls, tropical plants, rows of orchids her father tended like children. It was quiet. Safe. Except it wasn't. Pierce was already there. He stood near the back, hands in his pockets, looking at a cluster of white roses like they held the answers to questions he hadn't asked yet. "You need to stop," Kiara said. Her voice echoed off the glass. He didn't turn. "Stop what?" "This. All of it. The cars, the phone calls, paying off my father's mortgage. I didn't do it for him. I don't care who you did it for. I want you to leave me alone." "No, you don't." "Yes, I do." "Then why are you here?" The question hit her like a fist. Because she could have gone anywhere, could have stayed in her room, locked the door, ignored him. But she'd come here. To him. "I want answers," she said. "Then ask." "Why me?" Pierce finally turned. He looked tired. Not physically. He still looked like he'd stepped out of a boardroom. But there was something in his eyes, something raw. "Because I've been watching you for 5 years," he said. "And I'm done pretending I can walk away." Kiara's breath caught. 5 years? Since you were 18, since you started at Trinity, since... He stopped, shook his head. "It doesn't matter. It does to me." "You want the truth, Kiara?" "Fine. I saw you, and I knew. I knew you were mine. I knew I'd never let anyone else have you, and I've spent 5 years making sure you were safe, making sure you had everything you needed, waiting for the right moment to... To what? Trap me? To claim you." The word sent a shiver down her spine. "I'm not a thing you can own." "I know." He crossed to her, slow, deliberate. She should have stepped back, should have run, but her feet stayed planted. "You're a woman, brilliant, stubborn, strong enough to slap me and mean it. That's why I want you. You don't even know me. I know you better than you know yourself." He stopped inches away, and Kiara's pulse was a drum in her ears. "I know you read Austen when you're sad. I know you bite your lip when you're nervous. I know you're terrified of being forgotten, so you make yourself small, invisible, safe. And I know," his voice dropped, rough and certain, "that you think about me when you're alone." Her face burned. "You're insane." "Probably." "I hate you." "Not yet." And then he kissed her. Not soft. Not gentle. Hard and hungry and inevitable, his hand sliding into her hair, tilting her head back. Kiara's brain screamed at her to push him away, to fight. But her body had other ideas. Her hands fisted in his coat, pulling him closer, and she kissed him back like she was drowning and he was air. It was wrong, dangerous, impossible, and it felt like coming home. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. "You're going to marry me," Pierce said. Kiara laughed. It came out sharp, broken. "You're out of your mind. I'm serious. I don't even..." "You will." He stepped back, his hand sliding from her hair to her cheek, thumb brushing her bottom lip. "And when you do, you'll understand. This isn't about control, Kiara. It's about inevitability." Then he walked away, leaving her standing in the greenhouse, lips swollen, heart racing, world tilting. And the worst part? She believed him. "Yeah, tonta, mom." The engagement happened fast. Too fast. 1 week later, Pierce showed up at her cottage with his entire family in tow. His father, cold, sharp-eyed, terrifying. His mother, elegant, calculating, draped in pearls. His brother, younger, charming, dangerous in a different way. They sat in her tiny living room like they owned it. Because they did. Pierce's father laid out the terms. A merger, he called it. A union of families. The veils would be elevated, protected, provided for. Kiara would marry Pierce. Her father looked at her, pale and helpless. "Kiara, you don't have to." "She does," Pierce said. His voice was calm, final. "Or she can walk away. Right now. No money, no protection, no safety net. Just her and the world. It wasn't a choice. It was a cage dressed up as an option. Kiara looked at Pierce, at the ring box in his hand, at the life she was about to step into. And she said yes. Not because she wanted to, because she had to. The ring was a diamond. Massive. Beautiful. Cold. It felt like a shackle. But when Pierce slid it onto her finger, his eyes met hers, and she saw something underneath the ice, something that looked almost like relief. "Welcome to the family," his mother said, smiling like a shark. Kiara smiled back and started planning her escape. The ring felt like a brand. Kiara twisted it on her finger, watching the diamond catch the morning light filtering through her bedroom window. 3 days engaged. 3 days of nausea creeping up her throat every time she looked at it. She was supposed to be packing, moving her things from the cottage to the main house, Pierce's house, by the end of the week. Her father had already started boxing up books in the living room, his movements mechanical, his face hollow. He hadn't said a word since the Gallens left, just nodded, accepted, surrendered. Kiara wanted to scream at him, wanted to shake him until he fought back, until he told her to run, to get out, to save herself. But Dermot Vale had spent his entire life bowing to the Gallens. One more compromise wasn't going to break him. It was breaking her, though. She pulled on jeans and a sweater, tied her hair back, and walked out into the gray morning. The estate grounds stretched endlessly in every direction, manicured lawns, stone walls, trees older than her bloodline. Beautiful, oppressive, a gilded prison. The main house loomed in the distance, all sharp angles and dark stone, windows like eyes watching everything. Pierce's domain, soon to be hers. The thought made her skin crawl. She needed air, space. Somewhere the walls didn't close in. So she walked toward the east gate, past the gardens her father had spent decades perfecting, past the greenhouse where Pierce had kissed her and ruined everything. She didn't make it far. A black SUV pulled up beside her, silent as a predator. The window rolled down, and a man she didn't recognize leaned out, mid-30s, clean-cut, the kind of face that blended into crowds. "Miss Vale," he said. "Mr. Gallen asked me to drive you wherever you need to go." "I'm walking." He was very clear. "I don't care." The man's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, I have orders. Tell him to shove his orders." She kept walking. The SUV crawled alongside her for another 20 feet before finally stopping. She heard the door open, heard footsteps, and then the man was in front of her, blocking her path. "I can't let you leave the estate alone." Kiara laughed. It came out sharp, bitter. "Let me? You think you get to let me do anything?" "Those are my instructions." "Then quit." His expression didn't change. "I don't work for you." "Exactly." She stepped around him, pulse hammering. "So get out of my way." He didn't move, just stood there, immovable, a wall of muscle and obligation. Kiara's hands balled into fists, nails biting into her palms. She wanted to hit him, wanted to run, wanted to do anything but stand here and accept this. "Miss Vale, let her go." The voice cut through the tension like a blade. Kiara turned. Pierce stood 20 feet away, hands in his pockets, perfectly calm. He must have walked out from the main house, though she hadn't heard him approach. He had that ability, moving through space like a ghost, appearing exactly when he wanted to be seen. The guard stepped back immediately. "Sir, you said—" "I know what I said." Pierce's eyes never left Kiara. "Let her go." The man hesitated for half a second, then nodded and retreated to the SUV. The engine started. The vehicle pulled away, leaving them alone on the gravel path. Kiara didn't move, didn't breathe. Pierce walked toward her, slow and deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. "You can't keep me here," she said. "I'm not trying to." "Then what do you call that?" She gestured toward the disappearing SUV. "Protection." "From what?" "From everything you don't know yet." The words landed heavy, strange. Kiara searched his face for a lie, for manipulation, but all she found was certainty. Like he knew something she didn't, like he always had. "I want out," she said. "No, you don't." "Yes, I do." "Then leave." He stepped aside, clearing the path. "Walk away, right now. I won't stop you." Her heart slammed against her ribs. You're lying. I'm not. Then why? Because you won't. His voice was quiet, almost sad. You'll walk to the gate and you'll stop. You'll think about your father, about the mortgage, about the fact that the only reason you're still standing here is because I let you, and you'll come back. Kiara's throat closed up because he was right, and they both knew it. I hate you, she whispered. I know. He turned and walked back toward the house, shoulders straight, movements unhurried, like he'd already won. Kiara stood there, shaking, furious, trapped, and she didn't move, Chad. The first family dinner was a nightmare. Kiara sat at the far end of a table that could seat 20, surrounded by Gallens. Pierce's father, Ronan, presided at the head, silver-haired, stone-faced, a man who'd built an empire on violence and called it business. His mother, Siobhan, sat to his right, dripping in diamonds, smiling like she'd swallowed glass. Pierce's younger brother, Cillian, lounged across from Kiara, all charm and sharp edges. Watching her like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve, Pierce sat beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat coming off him, far enough that she could pretend he wasn't there. So, Cillian said, swirling wine in his glass, how does it feel to be the future Mrs. Gallen? Kiara's fingers tightened on her fork. Overwhelming. That's diplomatic. He grinned. I like her, Pierce. She's got more spine than the last one. There wasn't a last one, Pierce said flatly. Right, because you scared her off before the engagement could. Cillian, Ronan's voice was quiet. Final. Cillian shut up immediately, but his grin didn't fade. Siobhan leaned forward, her smile widening. Kiara, dear, we'll need to discuss the wedding. I've already spoken to the planner. June would be lovely, don't you think? The gardens will be in full bloom. June's fine, Kiara said. Her voice sounded far away, disconnected. And the dress. We'll need to schedule fittings. I know a designer in Paris. I can handle my own dress. The table went silent. Siobhan's smile froze in place, brittle and dangerous. Of course, she said smoothly, but the Gallen name comes with certain expectations. We want to make sure everything is appropriate. I'm sure it will be. Kiara. Pierce's hand found hers under the table, his grip firm. A warning. My mother's trying to help. Kiara pulled her hand away. I don't need help. Ronan set down his fork. The sound was small, but it echoed. You're marrying into this family, girl. That means you represent us. In public, in private, in every decision you make. If you can't handle that, say so now. Kiara met his eyes. They were the same blue as Pierce's, but colder, empty. I can handle it, she said. Good. He picked up his fork again. Then stop acting like a child. Heat flooded her face. She wanted to throw her plate at him, wanted to walk out, wanted to scream. But she swallowed it all down, forced herself to stay still, to breathe. Pierce's jaw was tight. He wasn't looking at his father, wasn't looking at anyone, just staring at his untouched plate like it held answers. The rest of the dinner passed in brutal silence. Kiara pushed food around her plate, barely tasting it. When Siobhan finally stood and announced dessert would be served in the sitting room, Kiara excused herself. I need air, she said. I'll come with you, Pierce said, already standing. No. Kiara. I said no. She walked out before he could argue, her heels clicking on marble floors, her chest tight and burning. She made it to the terrace before the tears came, hot, furious, humiliating. She swiped at them with the back of her hand, hating herself for crying, hating them for making her feel small. They're testing you. She spun. Cillian stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. I don't care, she said. You should. He stepped out onto the terrace, leaning against the stone railing. They do this to everyone. Push until you break. See what you're made of. And what am I made of? Don't know yet. He studied her, head tilted. But you didn't run. That's something. Maybe I'm just stupid. Maybe. He grinned. Or maybe you're tougher than you think. Kiara didn't answer. Just looked out at the dark grounds, the endless stretch of land that belonged to this family, that she was supposed to belong to now. He's not as bad as he seems, Cillian said quietly. Who? Your father? Pierce. She glanced at him. You don't know what you're talking about. I know he's been obsessed with you for years. I know he's turned down every woman our parents threw at him because none of them were you. And I know, he paused, that he's terrified you're going to leave. Good. Is it? Cillian's voice was soft, almost sad, because from where I'm standing, you're the first thing he's ever wanted that he can't control, and that scares the hell out of him. Before Kiara could respond, the terrace door opened again. Pierce stepped out, his eyes locking on Cillian. Leave, he said. Cillian raised his hands in mock surrender. Just keeping her company. I don't care. Leave. Cillian shot Kiara a look, half apology, half warning, and disappeared back inside. Pierce crossed to her, stopping just out of reach. You can't just walk away in the middle of dinner. I can do whatever I want. Not anymore. Because I'm yours now? She turned on him, anger boiling over. Because you bought me with a mortgage and a ring? I didn't buy you, Then what do you call this? Marriage. It's a transaction. It's protection. From what? She was shouting now, didn't care who heard. You keep saying that, but you won't tell me what it means. You won't tell me anything. You just expect me to stand there and smile and play the good little wife while your family treats me like I'm Like you're what? His voice was quiet, dangerous. Like I'm nothing. The words hung between them, raw and bleeding. Pierce's expression cracked just for a second, something dark and furious breaking through. You're not nothing, he said. You're everything. Kiara's breath caught. Stop. No. He stepped closer and she backed up until her spine hit the railing. You want the truth? Fine. I've spent 5 years keeping you safe, keeping men away from you, keeping you invisible because the moment anyone in my world noticed you, you'd become a target. A target for what? For them? His hand swept toward the house, toward his family, toward Dublin beyond. For everyone who'd use you to get to me. For every rival, every enemy, every bastard who'd hurt you just to watch me bleed. Then why drag me into it? Because I couldn't stay away. His voice cracked. I tried. For 5 years I tried. And I can't do it anymore. Kiara stared at him, heart pounding, world tilting. You're insane. Probably. This isn't love. I never said it was. Then what is it? He leaned in, close enough that she could see the storm in his eyes, close enough that her pulse was a drum in her ears. Inevitability. He kissed her, hard, desperate, like he was trying to prove something, to her or to himself, she didn't know. And Kiara kissed him back because she didn't know how to stop, because her body was a traitor, because somewhere underneath the anger and the fear, there was something else. Something that felt like falling. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard. I don't trust you, she whispered. I know. I don't want this. Liar. And he was right. That was the worst part. She did want it, or some twisted version of it, and she hated herself for it. Bam! The move happened 3 days later. Kiara packed her life into boxes, books, clothes, the few things that mattered, and watched as men in dark suits carried them up to the main house. Her father helped in silence, his face carved from stone, his movements slow. You don't have to do this, he said finally, standing in the empty cottage living room. Yes, I do. Kiara, it's done, Dad. She forced a smile. It's fine. It's not. Then why didn't you stop it? The question hung between them, sharp and accusing. Dermot's face crumpled, and for the first time in her life, Kiara saw her father cry. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry. She wanted to comfort him, wanted to say it was okay, that she understood. But the words wouldn't come, because it wasn't okay, and she didn't understand, so she just walked out, leaving him there, and climbed into the black SUV waiting to take her to her new cage. Bags. Pierce's wing of the house was massive. Bedroom bigger than her entire cottage, bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people, closets that echoed. Everything was dark wood and stone, expensive and cold. Her things looked small in it, insignificant. She was unpacking books when Pierce appeared in the doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, looking almost human. You didn't have to do it all yourself, he said. I wanted to. He stepped inside, picking up one of her books. Austin, worn and dog-eared. You've read this 100 times. More. Why? Because it ends the way it's supposed to. He set it down carefully. And ours doesn't? We don't have an ours. Not yet. Kiara slammed a drawer shut, the sound echoing. You need to stop saying things like that. Why? Because it's not real. It's real to me. She turned on him, fury bubbling up. You barely know me. I know you better than anyone. You know facts, details, things you've spied on me to learn. That's not the same as knowing someone. Then tell me something I don't know. The challenge hung in the air. Kiara's mind raced, searching for something, anything, that would prove he didn't have her entire life memorized. I'm afraid of drowning, she said finally. When I was 8, I fell in the pond behind the cottage. My mom had just died, and I wasn't paying attention, and I went under. My dad pulled me out, but I still dream about it sometimes. The water closing over my head. The silence. Pierce was silent for a long moment, then, You didn't tell anyone, not even your father. You just stopped going near the water. Her blood went cold. How? Because I pay attention. That's not... Her voice broke. You can't know everything. I don't. He crossed to her, slow and deliberate. I don't know what you're thinking right now. I don't know if you'll ever stop hating me. I don't know if this is going to work, but I know I'm not letting you go. You don't get to make that choice. I already did. And then his phone rang. Pierce pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor shifted. The almost softness vanished, replaced by something harder, colder. I have to take this, he said. Of course you do. He walked out without another word, already talking in low-clipped tones. Kiara stood there, surrounded by boxes and books and the wreckage of her life, and finally let herself cry. Jamag. That night, she couldn't sleep. The bed was too big, too soft, the room too quiet. She lay there, staring at the ceiling, mind racing. Around 2 a.m., she gave up and went looking for water. The house was a maze at night, hallways that twisted and turned, doors that all looked the same. She found the kitchen eventually, massive and industrial, and was filling a glass when she heard voices, low, angry, coming from somewhere down the hall. She should have gone back to bed, should have minded her business, but her feet carried her toward the sound anyway, quiet and careful. The voices were coming from behind a heavy wooden door, Pierce's office, she realized. She pressed her ear to it. Can't keep this up forever. That was Cillian. I don't need forever. Just until what? Until she figures it out? Until someone else does? Cillian's voice rose. You're playing a dangerous game, Pierce. I know what I'm doing. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're about to blow up everything we've built. I'm protecting her. By lying to her? Silence. Then Pierce quieter. She's not ready. She's never going to be ready. Not for this. Then I'll make her ready. And if you can't? Another silence. Longer. Heavier. Then I'll deal with it. Kiara's hand was on the doorknob before she realized it. She pushed it open. Both men turned. Pierce's face went carefully blank. Cillian looked like he'd been caught with his hand in a cookie jar. What are you hiding from me? Kiara demanded. Nothing, Pierce said. Bullshit. She stepped into the room, glass still in her hand. I heard you. She's not ready. Ready for what? Kiara, tell me the truth, right now, or I walk out of this house and never come back. Pierce's jaw tightened. You won't. Try me. Cillian cleared his throat. I should go. No. Kiara's eyes never left Pierce. Stay. Maybe you'll actually tell me what's going on. It's not his story to tell, Pierce said. Then tell me yours. I can't. Won't. Can't. He stepped toward her, and she saw it. The crack in his armor, the exhaustion underneath. Not yet. Not until... Until what? Until you're safe. I'm standing in your house, wearing your ring, surrounded by your men. How much safer can I get? You don't understand. Then make me understand. The shout echoed off the walls. Pierce flinched, and for the first time, Kiara saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. There are people, he said slowly, who would kill you if they knew who you really were. The words dropped like stones. What does that mean? Kiara whispered. It means... He stopped, shook his head. It means you're exactly where you need to be, and I'm not letting anyone hurt you. Who am I? Her voice cracked. Pierce, who am I? Mine. He reached for her, but she stepped back. You're mine, Kiara. That's all that matters. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you. She stared at him, at this man who'd upended her entire life, who kissed her like she was oxygen and spoke to her like she was a secret. And she realized she didn't know him at all. I'm going to bed, she said quietly. Kiara, don't follow me. She walked out, leaving them standing there, and made it all the way back to the bedroom before her legs gave out. She sat on the edge of the too-big bed, shaking, the ring heavy on her finger. There are people who would kill you if they knew who you really were. What did that mean? Who was she supposed to be? And why did it feel like everyone knew the answer except her? DarkRomance. The next 3 weeks were a study in tension. Kiara went through the motions, dress fittings, wedding planning meetings, dinners with Pierce's family where she smiled and nodded and said all the right things. But underneath, she was fracturing. Piece by piece, question by question, the foundation of her life was crumbling. She started digging. Small things at first. Going through her father's papers when he wasn't home, searching online for her mother's name, for records, for anything that didn't add up. She found gaps, missing years, documents that should exist but didn't. She asked her father about it one afternoon, casual, careful. What was Mum's maiden name? Dermot looked up from his newspaper, frowning. What? Her maiden name, before she married you. Why are you asking? Just curious. O'Neill, you know that. But there was something in his voice, something off. Kiara pushed. Where did you meet her? Cork. You know this, Kiara. Tell me again. Why? Because I want to hear it. Dermot set down the paper, his hands shaking slightly. What's this about? Nothing. She forced a smile. I've been thinking about her lately, with the wedding coming up. I wish she was here. His face softened, guilty and sad. Me too, love. But he didn't tell the story, just picked up his paper again, and the conversation died. Kiara went back to the main house with more questions than answers. The confrontation happened in Pierce's study. She found him there late one night, bent over paperwork, tie loosened, looking exhausted. He glanced up when she entered and something flickered in his eyes. Can't sleep? He asked. I need you to tell me about my mother. He went very still. What? My mother. Eileen Vale. O'Neill before she married my dad. Tell me about her. I never met her. Liar. Pierce set down his pen slowly. Kiara, Shawty you said you've been watching me for 5 years. You know everything about me, so you must know about her. I know she died when you were 6, cancer. What kind? What kind of cancer, Pierce? He hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. You don't know, Kiara said, because there's no record, no hospital stays, no treatment history, nothing. I looked. Maybe your father... My father's hiding something, and so are you. She crossed to the desk, planted her hands on it. Who was she? Your mother. Who was she really? Kiara, stop. Tell me. I can't. Why not? Because... He stood, the chair scraping back. Because the truth will destroy you. The words hung between them, brutal and final. Kiara's hands trembled. Try me. No. Pierce. I said no. He rounded the desk, gripping her shoulders. You want the truth? Fine. Your mother wasn't who you think she was. Your father isn't who you think he is. And neither are you. But if I tell you everything now, before you're ready, before I can protect you properly, you'll become a target. And I can't... His voice cracked. I can't lose you. You never had me. I've always had you. And then he kissed her, desperate, broken, like he was trying to rewrite the truth with his mouth. Kiara shoved him away. Stop. I can't. You have to. Tears were streaming down her face now. You have to tell me who I am. I will. After the wedding. After you're legally protected. After it's too late for me to run. He didn't deny it. Kiara backed toward the door, shaking her head. I can't do this. Yes, you can. No, I can't marry you without knowing. Then don't. His voice went cold, flat. Break the engagement. Walk away. Leave your father to fend for himself. Watch this family take back everything they gave you. See how long you last out there alone. The cruelty of it stole her breath. You bastard, she whispered. I'm keeping you alive. By making me a prisoner. By making you mine. She ran. Didn't think. Didn't plan. Just ran. Out of the study, through the halls, down the stairs. She made it to the front door, yanked it open, and stopped. A man stood on the steps, older, 50-something, sharp-dressed, with eyes that missed nothing. Miss Vale, he said, smiling. We need to talk. Behind her, she heard Pierce's footsteps, heard him stop at the top of the stairs. Get inside, Kiara, he said. His voice was deadly quiet. Who are you? She asked the man. George Walsh. He extended a hand. I'm a friend of your mother's. Kiara's world tilted. My mother's dead. Your mother was Eileen O'Connell, George said, before she was Eileen Vale, before she disappeared, and I've been looking for you for 23 years. Pierce was moving now, fast, crossing the foyer. Kiara, get away from him. But she couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Who am I? She whispered. George's smile widened. You're the heir to the O'Connell fortune, one of the richest families in Ireland, and someone's been hiding you for a very long time. Pierce grabbed her arm, yanking her backward. Don't listen to him. Is it true? Kiara twisted to look at him, at this man who'd claimed her, protected her, lied to her. Is it true? His face was a mask, but his eyes were storms. Yes, he said, and Kiara's world shattered. The name hit Kiara like a fist to the sternum. O'Connell. Not Vale. Not the daughter of a groundskeeper who'd spent his life trimming hedges and keeping his head down. O'Connell, a name that carried weight in Ireland, old money, old power, the kind of family that owned newspapers and politicians and entire city blocks. She stumbled backward, Pierce's hand still locked around her arm. George Walsh stood in the doorway, rain beginning to fall behind him, his smile sharp and patient like he'd been waiting years for this moment. And he had been. 23 years. Let go of her, George said. His voice was calm, pleasant even, but there was steel underneath. Get off my property, Pierce said, each word clipped, controlled. His grip on Kiara tightened. Your property? George's eyebrows lifted. Interesting choice of words. Is that what she is to you? Property? She's my fiancée. She's a stolen child. The words dropped like stones into water, ripples spreading outward, destroying everything they touched. Kiara's knees went weak. Pierce felt it, steadied her, but she wrenched her arm free. Don't touch me, she said. Her voice came out raw, broken. Kiara, don't! She backed away from both of them, hands shaking, vision blurring. Don't say my name! Don't! Her breath hitched. You knew. The whole time, you knew who I was. Yes. No apology, no excuse, just the truth, cold and final. And you didn't tell me. I was protecting you. By lying to me? By trapping me in an engagement? By... She couldn't finish. Couldn't breathe. The ring on her finger felt like it was burning through her skin. George stepped forward, careful, like approaching a spooked animal. Miss O'Connell, my name is Vale. Your name, George said gently, is Kiara Rose O'Connell. You were born in Cork on March 15th. Your mother was Eileen O'Connell, heir to the O'Connell shipping empire. Your father was... Dermot Vale, Kiara said. My father is Dermot Vale. Dermot Vale is the man who helped your mother disappear. George pulled a folder from his coat, offered it to her. Everything's in here. Birth certificates, photographs, records that prove who you really are. Kiara stared at the folder like it was a loaded gun. Why? She whispered. Why would she disappear? Because your grandfather, My employer was a difficult man, controlling, violent when he didn't get his way. Your mother wanted out, so she ran, changed her name, married Dermot, raised you as far from the family as possible. George's expression softened just slightly. She wanted you to have a normal life. Then why tell me now? Kiara's voice rose, cracking. Why destroy it? Because your grandfather died 6 months ago, and his will states very clearly that the entire O'Connell fortune goes to his only living heir. George's eyes locked on hers. You. The world tilted. Kiara grabbed the doorframe to steady herself. How much? She heard herself ask. 700 million euros, give or take. The number was meaningless, too big to comprehend. She looked at Pierce, at this man who'd claimed her, protected her, lied to her for years. His face was carved from stone, but his eyes were burning. You knew about the money, she said. Pierce didn't answer. You knew, she said again, louder. That's why you wanted me, not because you... Her voice broke. Not because of me, because of what I'm worth. That's not... Don't lie to me. Not now. Not anymore. Tears were streaming down her face, hot and humiliating. Did you kill my mother? The question hung in the air, vicious and desperate. Pierce's face went white. What? She died of cancer, except there's no record of treatment, no hospital stays, nothing. So I'm asking you, did you kill her? No. The word came out raw, furious. I was 18 when she died. I didn't even know she existed. But your family did. Silence. Heavy, damning. George cleared his throat. The Gallens have been searching for the O'Connell heir for years, ever since your grandfather made his will public. They knew if they found you first, they could control the fortune through marriage. He looked at Pierce. Isn't that right? Pierce's jaw was so tight, Kiara could see the muscle jumping. Get out! I'm not leaving without her. She's not going anywhere. That's her decision to make. Both men looked at Kiara. She stood there, shaking, destroyed, caught between two lies and no truth. I need to see my father, she said. Kiara, Pierce started. Now. Kian. The cottage looked smaller than she remembered. Kiara stood in the doorway, rain soaking through her jacket, staring at the man who'd raised her. Dermot sat at the kitchen table, a cup of cold tea in front of him, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the last hour. He knew. Of course he knew. The way his hands shook when he saw her, the way his face crumpled. I can explain, he said. Can you? Kiara stepped inside, water dripping onto the floor. Can you explain why you lied to me for 23 years? Why you let me think I was nobody? You're not nobody. I'm not your daughter. The words landed like a blade. Dermot flinched but didn't deny it. No, he said quietly. You're not. Not by blood. Kiara's legs gave out. She collapsed into the chair across from him, hands fisted in her lap. Then who are you? I'm the man who loved your mother. Dermot's voice cracked. I'm the man who helped her escape, who promised to keep you safe, who... He stopped, wiping at his eyes. Who raised you like you were mine, because in every way that matters, you are. Except you're not my father. I'm the only father you've ever known. That doesn't make it real. It's the only real thing in this whole bloody mess. Dermot leaned forward, desperate. Your mother came to me terrified, pregnant, running from a family that would have destroyed her. I helped her. I married her. I gave you both a name, a home, a life. Was it built on a lie? Yes, but it was also built on love. Kiara wanted to believe him, wanted to grab onto that and let it be enough. But the foundation of her entire existence had just collapsed, and love wasn't enough to rebuild it. Who's my real father? She asked. Dermot went pale. It doesn't matter. Who is he? He's dead, has been for 20 years. Name. Kiara. Give me his name. Dermot's hand shook as he reached for the folder. George's folder, the one Pierce had confiscated but that George had duplicated, the one now sitting on the table between them like evidence at a trial. He pulled out a photograph. Old, faded. A young man with dark hair and sharp features standing beside a woman Kiara barely recognized. Her mother. Younger. Happier. Alive. Connor O'Brien, Dermot said. He stopped, swallowed hard. He was engaged to someone else when he met your mother. Powerful family. The wedding was arranged, political. But he and Eileen fell in love anyway. When she got pregnant, he wanted to leave his fiancée, wanted to marry your mother properly. But his family found out. What happened? Car accident, single vehicle collision on a country road, no witnesses. Dermot's voice was hollow. Your mother never believed it was an accident. Kiara stared at the photograph, at this stranger whose blood ran through her veins, this ghost who'd loved her mother and died for it. Who was he engaged to? Dermot looked away. It doesn't... Who? Siobhan Gallen. The name hit like a bullet. Kiara's vision blurred. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. Siobhan. Pierce's mother. The woman who'd smiled at her over dinner, who'd talked about wedding dresses and flowers and expectations. The woman whose fiancé had died loving someone else. Pierce knows, Kiara whispered. I don't know what Pierce knows. He knows everything. He said so. She stood, the chair scraping back. He's been lying to me from the beginning. His whole family has. Kiara, wait. But she was already moving, out the door, into the rain, running toward the main house with her heart hammering and her mind screaming. She found Pierce in his study, standing by the window, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He didn't turn when she entered, didn't move. Your mother, Kiara said. Her voice was shaking, furious. Your mother was engaged to my father. Yes. And he died before they could marry. Yes. Did your family kill him? Pierce turned. His face was a mask, but his eyes were storms. I don't know. Liar. I don't. He set down the glass, careful, controlled. It happened before I was born. My mother never talks about it. My father won't say. But he stopped, jaw tight. But I've always suspected. And you didn't think to tell me? What was I supposed to say? By the way, my family might have murdered your biological father 23 years ago? That would have gone well. Better than this. She gestured wildly, encompassing everything, the house, the ring, the lies. Better than letting me walk into this blind. I was trying to protect you. Stop saying that. She was shouting now, didn't care who heard. You keep saying you're protecting me, but all you've done is trap me, use me, turn me into what? A pawn? A way to control my inheritance? It's not about the money. Then what's it about? You. He crossed to her fast, desperate. It's always been about you. I don't believe you. I don't care. His hands framed her face, forcing her to look at him. I don't care about your fortune. I don't care about your name. I care about you. The woman who reads Austen when she's sad, who bites her lip when she's nervous, who's terrified of being forgotten. I care about you, Kiara. Not what you're worth, not who your family was, you. Then why didn't you tell me the truth? Because the truth would have destroyed you. His voice cracked. And I can't. The door burst open. Cillian stood there, pale and breathing hard. We have a problem. Pierce's hands dropped. What? George Walsh just filed a petition with the courts. He's claiming Kiara's been held against her will, coerced into an engagement with a family connected to her biological father's death. Cillian's eyes flicked to Kiara. He's asking for an emergency custody order and protective injunction. On what grounds? On the grounds that the Gallens are dangerous, that we've been lying to her, that... He stopped, looked at Kiara. That we might kill her once the marriage is finalized and the inheritance transfers. Kiara's blood went cold. Pierce went very still. He said that? It's in the filing, along with photos, surveillance, evidence of our men following her, records of the mortgage payoff, everything. Cillian ran a hand through his hair. He's painting you as a predator and her as a victim. And it's working. The judge granted a hearing for tomorrow morning. Then we fight it. With what? Cillian's voice rose. He's not wrong, Pierce. We did lie to her. We did trap her. And if Kiara testifies against us, she won't. Both men looked at her. Kiara stood there, shaking, the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. She could walk away. Right now. could testify, could tell the truth, could burn the Gallens to the ground and take her inheritance and disappear. Or she could stay. "I need to think," she said. "Kiara." "I said, I need to think." She backed toward the door. "Don't follow me. Don't send your men. Don't." Her voice broke. "Just leave me alone." She ran before either of them could stop her. Kiara ended up in the greenhouse, the same place Pierce had kissed her, the same place everything had started to fall apart. Rain hammered the glass roof, the sound deafening. She collapsed onto a bench, head in her hands, trying to breathe. 700 million euros. Her mother's blood, her father's death. A family that might have killed for power and was certainly willing to lie for it. And Pierce. Always Pierce. The man who'd claimed her, protected her, destroyed her. She didn't know what to believe anymore. Footsteps on gravel. Kiara's head snapped up. Siobhan Gallen stood in the doorway, elegant even in the rain, her expression unreadable. "May I?" she asked. Kiara wanted to say no, wanted to scream at her to leave, but she was so tired of running, so she just nodded. Siobhan sat beside her, careful to maintain distance, hands folded in her lap. "You know," Kiara said. Her voice was hollow. "About my father, Connor O'Brien." "I do." "Were you in love with him?" Siobhan was quiet for a long moment. Then, "No, it was arranged, political. I was 19 and terrified and desperate to please my family. I didn't love him, didn't even know him, but I was supposed to marry him anyway." "And when he died?" "I was relieved." Siobhan's voice was soft, almost sad. "Is that terrible? He'd fallen in love with someone else, was going to leave me, humiliate my family, and then he died, and I didn't have to face any of it." "Did your family kill him?" "I don't know." Siobhan turned, her eyes meeting Kiara's. "I've wondered for 23 years. Ronan swears he didn't, but Ronan lies about a lot of things." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve the truth, at least from someone." Siobhan's expression softened. "Pierce is my son. I love him. But he's his father's child, stubborn, controlling, convinced he knows what's best for everyone. He's been obsessed with you for years, and I won't pretend it's healthy, but—" She paused. "But it's real. Whatever else he's lied about, his feelings for you aren't part of it." "How do you know?" "Because I've never seen him scared before. Not of losing money, not of rivals, not of anything. But he's terrified of losing you." Siobhan stood, smoothing her dress. "The hearing is tomorrow. You could destroy us. Testify against Pierce. Take your inheritance and walk away, and I wouldn't blame you. But if you stay, if you choose him, you need to understand what you're choosing. This family is violent, dangerous, built on blood and lies. And once you're in, you don't get out." "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning." Siobhan moved toward the door, then stopped. "Your mother made her choice. She ran, hid, built a quiet life. And she died anyway. Maybe running doesn't work. Maybe the only way to survive is to stop being prey." Then she was gone, leaving Kiara alone with the rain and the weight of impossible decisions. Kiara didn't go back to the main house. She stayed in the greenhouse until dawn, watching the rain turn to mist, thinking about her mother, about Eileen O'Connell, who became Eileen Vale, who died too young in a cottage on land owned by people who might have killed the man she loved. Running didn't save her. Hiding didn't save her. Maybe Siobhan was right. Maybe the only way to survive was to stop running. When the sun finally broke through the clouds, Kiara stood. Her body ached. Her eyes burned. But her mind was clear. She knew what she had to do. The courtroom was smaller than she expected. Just a judge, a clerk, lawyers on both sides. George Walsh sat with his attorney, looking confident and righteous. The Gallens sat opposite, Ronan stone-faced, Siobhan elegant, Cillian tense. Pierce sat at the end, hands folded, expression unreadable. He looked at her once, just once, and she saw everything he'd never said written in his eyes. The judge called the hearing to order. George's lawyer stood, laying out the case. Coercion, manipulation. A family with a history of violence and a clear financial motive. Evidence of surveillance. Evidence of control. We're asking for an emergency protective order, the lawyer said, to remove Miss O'Connell from the Gallen residence and place her under independent guardianship until her majority inheritance can be secured. The Gallen lawyer argued back. No evidence of physical harm. Engagement entered willingly. The protective measures were for her safety, not control. Back and forth. Legal jargon. Words that meant everything and nothing. Then the judge looked at Kiara. Miss O'Connell, she said, you've heard the arguments. Do you feel you've been coerced into this engagement? The courtroom went silent. Kiara stood. Her legs shook, but her voice was steady. No, she said. George's lawyer shot to his feet. Your Honor, the petitioner is clearly under duress. I'm not. Kiara's eyes locked on the judge. I'm not under duress. I'm not being held against my will. I entered this engagement with full knowledge of the circumstances. You didn't know who you were? I know now. She turned to George. And I'm grateful. Truly. For telling me the truth about my mother, about my family, but that doesn't change my decision. They're using you, maybe. She looked at Pierce. He was staring at her like she'd just stepped off a cliff, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. But that's my choice to make. The judge leaned forward. Are you certain, Miss O'Connell? Once you leave this courtroom as an engaged woman, there are legal implications, financial entanglements. If you marry Mr. Gallen, your inheritance becomes community property. I understand. And you still want to proceed? Kiara's hand went to the ring on her finger. The diamond caught the light, cold and beautiful and binding. Yes, she said, I do. The judge studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Very well, petition denied. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down. George looked like he'd been slapped. His lawyer was already gathering papers, preparing to appeal. But it didn't matter. Kiara had made her choice. She turned to leave, but Pierce was already there, blocking her path, eyes searching her face. Why? He asked. Just that. Why? Because running didn't save my mother, Kiara said. Her voice was quiet, steady. And I'm tired of being afraid. This doesn't fix anything. I know. We still have to figure out who killed your father, who's been hunting you, who... I know. She stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat coming off him. But we do it together, as partners, not as owner and property. I never... Yes, you did. She cut him off. You've been treating me like something you own since the moment you dragged me into that car, and that stops. Now. His jaw tightened. What are you saying? I'm saying I'll marry you. I'll join your family. I'll face whatever's coming. She pulled the ring off her finger, held it up between them. But not like this. Not as your possession, as your equal, or not at all. The challenge hung in the air. Behind them, Kiara could feel the Gallens watching, could feel George's fury, could feel the weight of 700 million euros and 23 years of lies pressing down. Pierce stared at the ring in her hand, then at her face. Then, slowly, he sank to one knee. The courtroom went silent. Kiara Rose O'Connell, he said. His voice was rough, uncertain, nothing like the controlled man who'd claimed her in the rain. Will you marry me? Not because I'm forcing you, not because of money or power or protection, but because... He stopped, swallowed hard. Because I can't imagine a world where you're not in it. It wasn't poetry, wasn't romantic, but it was real. Kiara looked at him, at this dangerous, damaged man who'd lied to her and trapped her and somehow, impossibly, made her feel seen for the first time in her life. Ask me again, she said, after you tell me everything, after there are no more secrets, after I know exactly what I'm choosing. And if you don't like what you hear, then I walk away, and you let me go. Pierce stood, took the ring from her hand, slipped it into his pocket. Deal, he said. And Kiara knew she'd just stepped into something far more dangerous than an arranged marriage. She'd stepped into war. They left the courthouse together. George tried to follow, shouting about appeals and legal options, but Ronan's men blocked his path. The Gallens climbed into their convoy of black SUVs, and Kiara climbed in beside Pierce, feeling the weight of her decision settling into her bones. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere we can talk. Pierce's hand found hers squeezed once. Somewhere I can tell you everything. And if I don't like it, then you walk away. Like you said. But they both knew it was too late for that. The car pulled away from the courthouse, and Kiara watched Dublin blur past the window. Somewhere out there, George Walsh was plotting his next move. Somewhere, the truth about her father's death was waiting to surface. Somewhere, enemies she didn't even know existed were circling, and she'd just chosen to face it all standing beside a man who'd lied to her from the beginning. "Are you scared?" Pierce asked quietly. Kiara looked at him. At the man who'd dragged her into this mess. The man who'd kissed her in a greenhouse. The man who'd just knelt in a courtroom and asked her to choose him. "Terrified," she said. "Good." His fingers tightened on hers. "That means you're paying attention." The car turned onto a private road, heading away from the city, toward the coast. Toward an estate Kiara had never seen. Toward answers she wasn't sure she wanted. But she didn't let go of his hand, and Pierce didn't let go of hers. Whatever was coming, whatever truths waited in the dark, they'd face it together, even if it destroyed them both. The estate sat on a cliff overlooking the Irish Sea, all gray stone and sharp edges carved into the landscape like a scar. Kiara had never seen it before, hadn't known it existed. But Pierce navigated the winding road with the ease of someone who'd made this drive 1,000 times, his jaw tight, eyes fixed ahead. They didn't speak. The silence was heavy, loaded with everything unsaid. Outside, clouds gathered dark and threatening, the kind of storm that didn't just pass through, the kind that tore things apart. The car stopped in front of massive iron gates. Pierce leaned out, punched a code into the security panel. The gates groaned open, and they drove through onto grounds that looked abandoned, overgrown gardens, cracked fountains, windows like dead eyes staring out at nothing. "What is this place?" Kiara asked. "Where it started." Pierce's voice was rough, tired. "Where my father built his empire, where—" He stopped, hands tightening on the wheel. "Where your father died." The words punched the air from her lungs. "Here?" Half a mile down the coast road, single vehicle collision. They found him at the bottom of a ravine. Pierce pulled the car to a stop in front of the main house. "My father owned this property then. Still does. And Connor O'Brien was here the night before he died." Kiara's hands were shaking. "Why?" "That's what we're here to find out." He killed the engine. The silence rushed in, broken only by wind howling off the sea. Kiara stared at the house, at this place where her biological father had spent his last hours, and felt something cold settle in her chest. Fear, anger, something darker underneath. "If your family killed him," she started, "then you deserve to know." Pierce turned to her, his eyes storm-dark and certain. "And you deserve to decide what happens next." He got out. Kiara sat there for another heartbeat, then followed. The inside of the house was worse than the outside. Dust-covered furniture, cobwebs in corners, the smell of decay and salt air. Pierce moved through it like a ghost, pulling sheets off chairs, opening curtains to let in gray light. "My father keeps records," he said. "Everything, every deal, every meeting, every—" He stopped in front of a heavy wooden door. "Every death. You think he has proof?" "I think if Connor O'Brien's death wasn't an accident, there's evidence, and it's in here." He pulled out a key, old, tarnished, and unlocked the door. It swung open on rusted hinges, revealing a study that looked frozen in time. Desk, filing cabinets, a wall of ledgers bound in leather. Kiara stepped inside, her pulse hammered in her throat. "How do we—" "We search everything." Pierce crossed to the filing cabinets, started pulling drawers. 1993. That's the year. Look for anything. Letters, contracts, records of payments, anything with Connor O'Brien's name or your mother's. They worked in silence, pulling files, flipping through pages of numbers and names and deals Kiara didn't understand. Her hands were filthy within minutes, dust coating her fingers, her throat dry from the stale air. But she kept going, driven by something she couldn't name. An hour passed. Then 2. The light outside shifted, dimmed. Storm clouds rolled in off the sea, and the first drops of rain hit the windows. "Nothing," Pierce said. Frustration bled through his voice. There's nothing here. There has to be. Unless he destroyed it. Pierce slammed a drawer shut. Unless he knew someone would come looking and… Wait. Kiara's fingers had caught on something. A ledger, tucked behind others, spine cracked and faded. She pulled it out, hands shaking. The date on the cover, 1992 to 1993. She opened it. Rows of entries, dates, and amounts and initials she didn't recognize. She flipped pages, scanning, searching, until… there. April 3rd, 1993. A payment. £50,000. Initials C.O., Connor O'Brien. And beside it, in neat handwriting, final settlement, contract dissolved. Pierce, she breathed. He was there in an instant, reading over her shoulder. His entire body went rigid. What contract? Kiara asked. Pierce flipped forward. More entries, more payments, all leading up to April 3rd, all marked with C.O.'s initials. Then, April 4th, problem resolved. R.G., Ronan Gallen. He paid my father off, Kiara whispered, and when that didn't work, he killed him. The words hung in the dust-choked air. Kiara's hands trembled on the ledger, proof of murder written in careful accounting, in cold transactions that added up to a man's death. We need to go. Pierce's voice was sharp, urgent. Right now. What? The front door slammed open. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Heavy boots on old floorboards. Pierce grabbed Kiara's arm, yanked her toward the back of the study. There's a service exit. Too late for that. Ronan Gallen stood in the doorway. He wasn't alone. 4 men flanked him, all armed, all watching Kiara like she was a problem that needed solving. Pierce stepped in front of her. Dad, move aside, Pierce. No. Ronan's expression didn't change. This doesn't concern you. Like hell it doesn't. She's my fiancée. She's a liability. Ronan's eyes flicked to Kiara. You should have stayed in the courthouse, girl. Should have taken Walsh's deal and disappeared. Would have been easier. Easier for who? Kiara's voice came out steadier than she felt. For everyone. Ronan stepped into the study, his men following. But you had to dig, had to search, had to find… His gaze landed on the ledger in Kiara's hands. Something flickered in his eyes. Not fear. Calculation. That. You killed Connor O'Brien, Kiara said. I solved a problem. He was my father, Shet. He was a fool. Ronan's voice was cold, factual. He was supposed to marry Siobhan, unite 2 families, strengthen alliances. Instead, he fell in love with Eileen O'Connell and threatened to destroy years of planning. So yes, I solved it. The casual admission hit like a fist. Kiara's vision blurred, rage and grief tangling in her chest. You murdered him. I protected my family. Ronan turned to Pierce. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do. She is my family. She's a threat to everything we've built, everything we are. Ronan gestured to his men. Take her. They moved. Pierce moved faster. He pulled a gun from his jacket. Kiara hadn't even known he was armed, and leveled it at his father. Back off. The men froze. Ronan didn't. You won't shoot me, he said calmly. Try me. You're my son, and she's mine. Pierce's hand was steady, his voice deadly quiet. You're not touching her. Ronan studied him for a long moment, then sighed. I was afraid of this. He nodded. The men drew their weapons. Pierce fired. The gunshot cracked through the study, deafening in the enclosed space. One of Ronan's men went down, blood blooming across his shoulder. The others scattered, diving for cover. Pierce grabbed Kiara's hand. Run! They bolted through the service exit into a narrow hallway that stank of mold and rot. Behind them, shouting. Footsteps. Another gunshot that splintered the doorframe beside Kiara's head. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Her lungs burned. Pierce dragged her forward through twisting corridors, downstairs, toward a cellar. Stone walls, low ceiling, the smell of salt water. Pierce slammed the door behind them, through the bolt. That won't hold them, Kiara gasped. I know. He was already moving, pulling at stones in the wall. There's a tunnel. Smugglers used it centuries ago. Goes out to the cliffs. Pierce, help me! She grabbed stones, yanking, and one came loose. Then another, Behind them, the door shuddered under impact. They were trying to break through. Pierce pulled out a larger stone, and cold air rushed in, a gap barely wide enough for a person. "Go," he said. "Not without you. Kiara, go." She squeezed through. The tunnel was tight, dark, slick with moisture. She could hear the sea somewhere ahead, waves crashing. Behind her, Pierce followed, pulling stones back into place as he went. The door burst open. Shouting echoed down the cellar. "Move!" Pierce shoved her forward. They ran, bent double, hands scraping stone, boots slipping on wet rock. The tunnel twisted, descended, the sound of the sea growing louder. Light appeared ahead, gray, storm-filtered, but light. Kiara burst out onto a narrow ledge. Below, waves crashed against rocks, white and furious. Above, the cliff face rose sheer and unforgiving. Rain lashed sideways, cold as knives. Pierce emerged beside her, breathing hard. "There's a path, goes down to the beach." "Where the car is." "No, there's a boat, in a cave. Old smuggler's cache." He grabbed her hand. "Can you swim?" "In this?" She gestured at the churning water. "If we have to." Behind them, voices in the tunnel. Flashlights cutting through darkness. Pierce pulled her along the ledge, toward a trail that was more suggestion than path. Rocks crumbled under their feet. Kiara's hands bled where she grabbed at the cliff face for balance. They were halfway down when the shooting started. Bullets pinged off rocks. Kiara screamed, ducked. Pierce covered her with his body, returning fire up the cliff. "Keep moving!" She didn't know how. Didn't know how her legs still worked, how her hands still gripped stone. But she climbed down, inch by terrifying inch, until her feet hit sand. The beach was narrow, pinched between cliff and sea. Waves crashed close, soaking her boots. Pierce dragged her toward a dark opening in the rock, a cave barely visible through the rain. They stumbled inside. It smelled like rotting seaweed and diesel. And there, pulled up on the sand, was a motorboat. Small, battered, but with an engine. "Help me," Pierce said. Together, they shoved the boat toward the water. It was heavier than it looked, and the wet sand sucked at Kiara's feet. Behind them, voices on the cliff path. Men descending. The boat hit the surf. A wave slammed into it, nearly knocked Kiara off her feet. Pierce hauled her in, then jumped after, yanking the engine cord. It sputtered, died. "Come on," Pierce muttered. He pulled again. Nothing. Men appeared at the cave mouth, guns raised. Pierce pulled the cord a third time. The engine roared to life. Bullets tore into the water beside them. Pierce opened the throttle and the boat leapt forward, cutting through waves, spray soaking them. Kiara clung to the side, salt water in her mouth, her eyes, her lungs. Behind them, Ronan's men stood on the beach, shouting orders Kiara couldn't hear over the engine and the storm. Pierce steered them out, away from the cliff, toward open water. The boat bucked and heaved, crashing through swells. Kiara's stomach lurched. "Where are we going?" she shouted. "Anywhere but here." A larger boat appeared on their left. Black. Fast. Closing distance. "Shit," Pierce said. He jerked the wheel. Their boat tilted sickeningly, then righted. The black boat followed, gaining. "They're going to catch us." "Not if I can help it." He steered toward the rocks. Kiara saw them ahead, jagged, breaking the surface like teeth. Waves crashed against them, white and violent. "Pierce, you can't—" He drove straight for them. The black boat followed, but it was bigger, less maneuverable. Pierce threaded between rocks with inches to spare, the hull scraping stone. Behind them, the black boat tried the same maneuver. Didn't make it. Metal screamed on rock. The boat shuddered, listed. Men shouted, scrambling. Pierce didn't slow down. Kept going, out past the rocks, into darker water. Only when the shore disappeared behind rain and mist did he ease off the throttle. They sat there, soaked and shaking, the boat rising and falling on swells. Kiara's hands wouldn't stop trembling. Her teeth chattered. "Are you hit?" Pierce asked. His voice was rough, urgent. "What? Are you shot? Bleeding?" She looked down at herself, blood on her jacket, but not hers, from scraping rock, from— "No," she said. "I'm fine." "You're not fine." "Neither are you." Pierce laughed. It came out broken, almost hysterical. "No, I'm really not." Kiara stared at him. At this man who just shot one of his father's men. who'd chosen her over his family, who was now a fugitive with her in a boat in the middle of a storm. "What do we do now?" she asked. "I don't know. You always know." "Not this time." He ran a hand through his wet hair, looking lost in a way she'd never seen. I couldn't let him hurt you, and now you're a dead man." They both turned. George Walsh sat in the back of the boat, soaked, grim, holding a gun pointed at Pierce's chest. Kiara's heart stopped. "I've been following you since the courthouse." George's voice was calm, almost apologetic. "Thought you might lead me somewhere useful. Didn't expect this." "Put the gun down," Pierce said. "Can't do that." "George, Kiara started. "You're coming with me, Miss O'Connell." George's eyes never left Pierce. "And he's going to let you. Aren't you, Mr. Gallen?" Pierce's hand moved toward his own weapon. "Don't." George's finger tightened on the trigger. "I will shoot you, and then I'll take her anyway. Your choice." "She's not going anywhere." "Yes, she is." George stood, careful in the rocking boat. "Because I'm not working for myself. I'm working for the O'Connell family, what's left of it, and they want their heir back." "I don't know them," Kiara said. "I don't want—" "You're worth 700 million euros. You think they care what you want?" George gestured with the gun. "Move to this end of the boat. Now." Kiara didn't move. Couldn't. Her mind was racing, searching for options, finding none. "She stays with me," Pierce said. His voice was dead calm. "Dangerous. You just became a fugitive. Shot your own father's man. You think you can protect her now? You're hunted, broken, finished." George's smile was cold. "It's over, Gallen. You lost." "No." "Pierce." Kiara grabbed his arm. He looked at her. Rain streamed down his face, mixing with something else. Desperation, fury, fear. "I won't let him take you," he said. "You don't have a choice. I always have a choice." And he lunged at George. The gun went off. The sound cracked across the water, sharp and final. Pierce stumbled. Blood bloomed across his shoulder, spreading fast. "No!" Kiara screamed. George advanced, gun steady. "I said don't!" Pierce hit him. They went down together, grappling in the rocking boat. Water sloshed over the sides. Kiara grabbed for the gun, but it skittered away into the bilge. Pierce's fist connected with George's jaw. George's elbow drove into Pierce's wounded shoulder. Pierce's scream was raw, animal. The boat tilted. Kiara lost her balance, fell. Her head cracked against the side, and stars burst in her vision. When she looked up, both men were in the water. "Pierce!" She lunged for the side. They surfaced, still fighting, waves crashing over them. George had Pierce in a chokehold, dragging him under. Pierce broke free, gasping, blood turning the water around him pink. Kiara dove in. The cold hit like a fist, stealing her breath. Salt water burned her throat. She couldn't see, couldn't breathe, couldn't... Her hand found fabric. She pulled. Pierce surfaced, coughing, pale as death. "Get back to the boat," he choked out. "Not without you." George grabbed her ankle, yanked her under. Water closed over her head. The pond. The silence. Her mother's death. Everything tangling together, drowning her. She kicked, connected with something. George's grip loosened. She surfaced, lungs screaming, and saw the boat drifting away. "Swim!" Pierce was beside her, his good arm looped through hers, pulling her toward the boat. They made it. Barely. Kiara's hands were numb, useless. Pierce hauled her up with his one working arm, then collapsed onto the deck, breathing in short, sharp gasps. Behind them, George was swimming toward them. Strong strokes, determined. Kiara found the gun. Wet, probably useless, but she pointed it anyway. "Stop," she said. George kept coming. She pulled the trigger. Click. Nothing. George's hand hit the boat's edge. Kiara swung the gun like a club. It connected with his skull. Not hard enough to kill, but enough. George's eyes rolled back. His grip loosened. He slipped beneath the surface. "Kiara!" Pierce's voice was faint, far away. She turned. He was slumped against the side, his shoulder soaked in blood, his face gray. "Start the engine," he said. "I don't know how Pull the cord, just—" His eyes fluttered. "Just go." She pulled. The engine coughed, died. She pulled again. It caught, sputtering to life. Kiara grabbed the throttle, opened it. The boat lurched forward, and she steered blindly through rain and waves, away from the cliffs, away from George Walsh's floating body, toward shore she couldn't see. Beside her, Pierce's breathing was getting shallower. "Stay awake," she said. "Trying." "Where do I go?" "North. There's—" He coughed, blood flecking his lips. "There's a safe house, 40 miles up the coast. Cillian knows it. I need to call him. Phone's in my pocket." She dug it out with one hand, steering with the other. Her fingers were so cold she could barely work the screen. She found Cillian's number, pressed call. It rang and rang. "Come on," she whispered. "Yeah?" Cillian's voice tense. "It's Kiara. We need help. Pierce is shot. Your father, he tried to kill us. George Walsh is in the water. We're on a boat heading north and I don't know where I'm going." "Slow down. Is Pierce conscious?" She looked at him. His eyes were closed. "Pierce!" She shook him with her free hand. His eyes opened, just barely. "Stay with me. Tell Cillian." His voice was fading. 40 miles. Red lighthouse. Can't miss it." "You hear that?" Kiara said into the phone. "I heard. I'm coming. Keep him awake. Keep pressure on the wound. And Kiara—" Cillian paused. "Don't let him die. Because if he does, our father wins. And that can't happen." The line went dead. Kiara dropped the phone, grabbed Pierce's hand. "You're not dying. Might not have a choice." "Yes, you do. You always have a choice. You told me that." She squeezed his fingers hard. "So choose to live, choose to stay, choose you." The word was barely a whisper. "What?" "I choose you." His eyes opened, clear despite the pain. "I chose you the moment I saw you, and I'll choose you until I can't anymore." Tears mixed with rain on Kiara's face. "Then don't stop. Don't you dare stop." She steered through the storm, one hand on the throttle, one hand gripping Pierce's, watching the horizon for a lighthouse that might not exist. Behind them, Dublin burned with sirens and searchlights. Ahead, the dark water stretched endlessly. And somewhere in between, Kiara Vale, Kiara O'Connell, whoever she was, made a choice of her own. She wasn't running anymore. She was fighting back, even if it killed them both. The red lighthouse appeared through the rain like a ghost. Kiara had been steering for what felt like hours, her hands numb on the throttle, her eyes burning from salt spray and exhaustion. Pierce was unconscious now, his breathing shallow, his skin cold as death. "There," she whispered, though he couldn't hear her. "We're almost there." She cut the engine as they neared the shore, letting the boat drift toward a small dock barely visible in the storm. The lighthouse stood above them, paint peeling, windows dark. It looked abandoned. It looked like the end of the world. The boat hit the dock with a hollow thud. Kiara tied it off with shaking hands, then turned to Pierce. He was too heavy, too still. Blood had soaked through the makeshift bandage she'd pressed to his shoulder. Her jacket, torn and wadded against the wound. "Pierce?" She shook him. "Wake up. I can't carry you." His eyes fluttered open, barely. "Leave me." "No." "Kiara." "I said no." She got her arms under his shoulders, hauled him upright. He screamed, the sound raw and broken, but she didn't stop. Couldn't. She dragged him onto the dock, then toward the lighthouse, his boots scraping wood. The door was locked. She kicked it, once, twice. The third time it gave, swinging inward into darkness that smelled like mold and abandonment. She pulled Pierce inside, lowered him against the wall. His head lolled to the side. Blood dripped onto the floor, dark and steady. "Stay with me," she said. Her voice cracked. "Please, just stay." Headlights cut through the rain outside. A car, no, 2 cars, pulling up fast. Kiara grabbed the gun from her pocket. Still wet. Still probably useless. But it was all she had. The door burst open. Cillian stood there, soaked and wild-eyed, flanked by 2 men Kiara didn't recognize. He saw Pierce, and his face went white. Jesus Christ. "He's been shot," Kiara said. Unnecessary, obvious, but the words came anyway. "Your father, he tried to kill us. Both of us. I know. Cillian was already moving, kneeling beside Pierce, fingers on his neck checking for a pulse. Dad called. Said Pierce had gone rogue. Said he'd stolen family assets and kidnapped you. He looked up at Kiara. Said I needed to choose family or traitor. And? I chose him. Cillian gestured to his men. Get him in the car. We have a doctor waiting 10 miles north. Private, discreet, move. They lifted Pierce carefully, carried him out into the rain. Kiara followed, legs shaking, the gun still clutched in her hand. Cillian caught her arm. You're bleeding. She looked down. Her hands were torn, knuckles raw, blood mixed with rain. She hadn't noticed. I'm fine. You're not. Neither is he. She pulled away, climbed into the back of the SUV where they'd laid Pierce across the seats. His eyes were closed again. His chest rose and fell, but barely. Cillian got in front. Drive. The car lurched forward, away from the lighthouse into the storm. Night. The doctor was a woman in her 50s who asked no questions and worked with the efficiency of someone who'd patched up gunshot wounds before. She set up in a safe house, another estate, this one inland, hidden behind trees and high walls. Kiara sat outside the room where they'd taken Pierce, hands wrapped in clean bandages, exhaustion pulling at her bones. Cillian sat beside her, silent, tense. Is he going to die? Kiara asked. I don't know. That's not helpful. It's honest. Cillian ran a hand through his hair. The bullet went clean through. That's good. But he lost a lot of blood. And if infection sets in, he stopped. We wait. That's all we can do. Kiara leaned her head back against the wall, closed her eyes. Every muscle in her body ached. Every breath hurt. Your father will come for us, she said. I know. You should go. Take your men. Get out before... I'm not leaving him. Cillian's voice was hard, final. Or you. You barely know me. I know enough. He looked at her, something sad in his eyes. I know my brother's been obsessed with you for 5 years. I know he shot one of our father's men to protect you. I know he chose you over everything he's ever known. That's enough. He didn't choose me. He chose control. You really believe that? Kiara opened her eyes, stared at the closed door. I don't know what I believe anymore. The door opened. The doctor emerged, pulling off bloodied gloves. He's stable, she said. The wound is clean. I've given him antibiotics, fluids. He needs rest. A lot of it. But he'll live. The relief hit Kiara like a wave, stealing her breath. Can I see him? She asked. He's unconscious. Probably will be for hours. I don't care. The doctor stepped aside. Kiara went in. Pierce lay on a narrow bed, his shoulder bandaged, his face pale but peaceful. Machines beeped softly. An IV dripped into his arm. He looked smaller somehow, younger, mortal. Kiara pulled a chair to the bedside, sat down, and took his hand. You're an idiot, she whispered. You know that? You could have died. Should have died. And for what? For me? He didn't answer, just breathed, steady and slow. I didn't ask for this, she continued. Her voice broke. Didn't ask to be dragged into your world. Didn't ask to find out my entire life was a lie. Didn't ask to... She stopped, swallowed hard. Didn't ask to care about you. But I do. And I hate you for it. His fingers twitched in hers. Just barely. But enough. Kiara leaned forward, pressed her forehead to his hand, and let herself cry. Batit. Ronan Gallen came 3 days later. Kiara was in the garden, a small, overgrown space behind the safe house, when Cillian found her. He's here, he said. His face was tight, controlled. With 20 men, they've surrounded the property. Kiara's pulse jumped. Can we run? No, he's blocking every exit. Cillian's hand rested on the gun at his hip. He wants to talk. Says he'll give us 10 minutes before he comes in shooting. And Pierce? Still weak, can barely stand. Cillian's jaw tightened, but conscious, and insisting on being there. Of course he is. They went inside. Pierce was in the main room, leaning against the wall, his shoulder still bandaged, his face drawn, but his eyes were clear, furious. You should be in bed, Kiara said. I should be dead. He straightened, wincing. But I'm not. So I'm finishing this. Pierce, he wants you, Kiara. He'll burn this place to the ground to get you. And I'm not letting that happen. So what's the plan? We fight 20 armed men? No. Pierce looked at Cillian. We negotiate. With what? Cillian demanded. We have nothing he wants except her. We have proof. Pierce's eyes locked on Kiara. The ledger. We still have it, right? She'd grabbed it before they fled the Cliff estate, shoved it in her jacket. It was upstairs now, water-damaged but readable. Yes, she said. Then we have leverage. He'll just kill us and take it. Not if we make it public first. Pierce pulled out his phone. Cillian had gotten him a new one. I upload this to every news outlet in Ireland, every prosecutor, every rival family. The Gallen Empire comes down. Everything my father built, destroyed. He'll still kill you, Kiara said. Maybe. Pierce met her eyes. But you'll be safe. That's what matters. No. She crossed to him, grabbed his good arm. That's not what matters. We both get out of this, together, or not at all. Kiara, I'm not negotiating. Her voice was steel. You don't get to sacrifice yourself for me. Not now. Not ever. Something shifted in Pierce's expression, softened. Then what do you suggest? Kiara turned to Cillian. You said your father wants to talk. So let's talk, the three of us. No guns, no men, just... She took a breath. Just the truth. All of it. Laid out. And we let him choose. Choose what? Cillian asked. Family. Or empire. But they met in the garden. Neutral ground. Ronan stood in the center, flanked by two of his men, looking exactly as Kiara remembered. Cold, composed, untouchable. Pierce stood across from him, Kiara at his side, Cillian slightly behind. 10 minutes, Ronan said. Then my men come in. We don't need 10 minutes, Pierce said. He held up his phone. I have the ledger. Every payment, every death. Connor O'Brien. 3 others you had killed between 1990 and 2000, all documented in your handwriting. Ronan's expression didn't change. Proof of what? Business transactions? Proof of murder. Pierce's voice was steady. I upload this, and you're finished. The police, the prosecutors, the families you've wronged, they'll tear you apart. And you think that saves you? Ronan's smile was cold. You're my son, my blood. They'll destroy you too. I know. Silence. Heavy, final. Then why are you doing this? Ronan asked. Because she's worth it. Pierce's hand found Kiara's, squeezed. Because you taught me to protect what's mine. And she's mine. More than this family, more than the empire, more than you. Ronan's jaw tightened. For the first time, Kiara saw something flicker in his eyes. Not fear, but recognition, like he was seeing Pierce clearly for the first time. You'd destroy everything I've built, Ronan said quietly. For her. Yes. Even knowing it would destroy you too. Yes. Ronan looked at Kiara, studied her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. What did he promise you? Money? Power? Nothing, Kiara said. He promised me nothing. He just... She stopped, searching for words. He chose me. When no one else ever has. When I was nothing and nobody. He chose me. You're not nothing. You're worth 700 million euros. I'm worth more than that. Kiara stepped forward, away from Pierce, meeting Ronan's cold gaze. I'm worth my mother's blood, my father's death, 23 years of lies, and I'm done being a pawn in your empire. So what do you want? I want the truth, all of it. Who ordered my father's death? Who hid me? Who knew what and when? Her voice hardened. And I want justice. Justice. Ronan laughed. It came out bitter. There's no justice in this world, girl. Only power, and those willing to take it. Then I'll take it. Kiara pulled the ring off her finger. Pierce's ring, still there despite everything. She held it up. I'll marry your son. Join your family. Bring the O'Connell fortune with me. But on one condition. Ronan's eyes narrowed. What? You confess. To my father's murder, to the others, to all of it, publicly. Absolutely not. Or I upload the ledger myself. Kiara pulled out her own phone, the screen cracked but working. I've already photographed every page, sent copies to 3 different journalists. All I have to do is press send. Ronan's face went white, then red. You're bluffing. Try me. They stared at each other. Kiara's heart hammered, but her hand was steady on the phone. You'd destroy yourself too, Ronan said. The O'Connell name would be tied to scandal. Your inheritance contested. You'd have nothing. I'd have the truth. That's enough. Behind her, Pierce made a sound, half laugh, half disbelief. Cillian muttered something under his breath. Ronan looked at his sons, then at Kiara, then at the phone in her hand. You're more like your mother than I thought, he said finally. I'll take that as a compliment. It wasn't meant as one. Ronan's shoulders sagged, just slightly. For the first time, he looked old, tired. Eileen O'Connell was stubborn, reckless. She chose love over sense, and it got her killed. Kiara's breath caught. What? Your mother didn't die of cancer. Ronan's voice was flat, factual. She died because the O'Connell family found her, tracked her down when you were 6, sent men to bring her back. She fought, and they... He stopped. They were supposed to take her alive, but she had a gun, Dermot's gun. She shot one of them, so they shot her. The world tilted. Kiara's knees buckled. Pierce caught her, held her upright. You knew, she whispered. I knew. Ronan didn't look away. The O'Connells paid me to keep quiet, to make sure Dermot kept you hidden, to ensure you never learned who you really were. Why? Because your grandfather wanted you to suffer, wanted you to grow up poor, invisible, powerless. It was his revenge for your mother's betrayal. Ronan's expression was stone. And I took the money, because that's what I do. I survive. I profit. I protect my own. At the cost of a child's mother. Kiara's voice shook with rage. At the cost of the truth. Yes. And you feel nothing. I feel what I've always felt. Ronan met her eyes. Certainty. That this is how the world works. That sentiment is weakness. That you're a monster. Pierce's voice cut through. Say it, Dad. Say what you are. Ronan looked at his son. Something passed between them. Years of silence, of lessons taught and absorbed, of a man trying to build his sons in his image. Yes, Ronan said quietly, I'm a monster. I've always been one, and I raised you to be the same. You failed. Did I? Ronan's smile was sad. You shot one of your own men. You stole from your family. You threatened to destroy everything I built. That's not weakness, Pierce. That's me. That's what I taught you. No. Pierce's hand tightened on Kiara's. You taught me to protect what's mine, and I am. But not the way you would. Not by destroying everyone else. By choosing. By drawing a line. By saying this far and no further. Ronan stared at him for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone. What are you doing? Cillian asked. Calling my lawyer. Ronan's voice was tired, resigned. Tell him I'm turning myself in. All charges. Full confession. Dad, Cillian started. It's done. Ronan looked at Kiara. You win. The truth comes out. The empire falls, and you... He almost smiled. You get to walk away clean. Nothing about this is clean, Kiara said. No, but it's over. Ronan turned to Pierce. Take care of her. Better than I took care of anything. I will. And Pierce? Ronan's expression cracked, just for a second. I'm sorry for all of it. Pierce didn't answer, just stood there, holding Kiara, watching his father walk away toward the waiting police cars that Cillian had already called. The next 3 months were chaos. Ronan Gallen's confession made international news. The trial was brutal, public, a dissection of decades of crime and violence. The Gallen empire collapsed, assets frozen, properties seized, allies disappearing overnight. Cillian took over what was left, a fraction of what had been, but enough to rebuild, clean, legal, different. Pierce testified against his father. Every word cost him. Kiara watched from the gallery as he laid out the truth, as he buried his family's legacy with cold facts and colder resolve. And through it all, Kiara searched for her own truth. She found the O'Connells, what was left of them. Distant cousins, second-generation wealth, people who'd profited from her grandfather's cruelty and her mother's suffering. She met with lawyers, accountants, trustees. The inheritance was real. 700 million euros held in trust, waiting for her. She took it, not because she wanted it, because she'd earned it, through blood and lies and pain, and then she did something no one expected. She gave most of it away. To charities, to causes her mother would have cared about, to rebuilding communities the Gallens had destroyed. She kept enough to live on, to be comfortable, to never be powerless again. But she didn't keep the name. "I'm not an O'Connell," she told the lawyers, "and I'm not a Vale. She stopped, looked at Pierce standing beside her in the sterile office. "I'm Kiara," she said finally. "Just Kiara. That's enough." Gang. The wedding happened 6 months after Ronan's confession. Small. Private. Just Cillian, Dermot, Siobhan, and a handful of people who'd stuck by them through everything. No press, no spectacle, no empire. Just two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and decided to stay. Kiara wore a simple dress. No designer, no Paris fittings. Just white linen and her mother's necklace. The one thing Dermot had kept. The one piece of Eileen that had survived. Pierce wore a suit. His shoulder had healed, leaving a scar he'd carry forever. A reminder of the price he'd paid. They stood in the garden of the safe house. The same place where Ronan had surrendered, where everything had ended and begun. The officiant was a woman neither of them knew well. She spoke about love and choice and commitment. Standard words. But when she asked if they took each other, the weight of it was anything but standard. "I do," Pierce said. His voice was steady, certain. Kiara looked at him. At this man who'd lied to her, trapped her, nearly died for her, who'd chosen her over everything he'd ever known. "I do," she said. The kiss was soft, brief, real. When they pulled apart, Cillian was grinning. Siobhan was crying quietly. Dermot looked like he couldn't quite believe any of this was happening. And Kiara felt something she hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not happiness. Not yet. There was too much damage, too much healing left to do. But peace. The kind that comes from knowing you made your choice and owned it. They didn't go on a honeymoon. Didn't leave Ireland. Instead, they bought a house. Not in Dublin. Not on the estate. Somewhere small, coastal. A cottage that overlooked the sea where they'd nearly died. Kiara stood on the porch the first morning, coffee in hand, watching waves crash against rocks. Pierce came up behind her, wrapped his good arm around her waist. "Having second thoughts?" he asked. "About what?" "All of it. Me? This?" She leaned back against him. "Every day. That's honest." "It's true." She turned in his arms, looked up at him. "I don't know if I love you, Pierce. Not the way stories say you should. Not simple. Not easy. I know. But I choose you anyway. Every morning, every moment. That has to be worth something. It's worth everything." He kissed her forehead. "And for what it's worth, I don't know if what I feel is love either. It's too big, too complicated, too inevitable." He smiled. The real one. The one he saved just for her. "Yeah, that." They stood there, watching the sun rise over water that had tried to kill them. Over a world that had lied to them, used them, nearly destroyed them. But they were still standing, damaged, scarred, changed, but alive. Gents. 6 months later, Kiara found the letters. They were in a box in Dermot's cottage, the one he still lived in, refusing to leave despite Kiara's offers to move him somewhere nicer. Letters from her mother. Dozens of them. Written over the years but never sent. Kiara sat on the floor of her father's living room, reading them one by one. Her mother's voice came through clear and strong, scared, determined, fiercely protective. In one letter, dated a week before she died, Eileen wrote, "If you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm so sorry. I tried to keep you safe, tried to give you a normal life. But normal was never an option for us, was it? You're going to find out who you really are someday. And when you do, I need you to remember something. You're not your bloodline. You're not your name. You're not your inheritance. You're the choices you make, the people you protect, the love you give even when the world tells you not to. That's who you are, Kiara. That's all that matters. Kiara's hands shook. Tears streamed down her face. Dermot found her there hours later, surrounded by letters, face swollen from crying. She knew, Kiara whispered. She knew they'd come for her, and she stayed anyway, to protect me. She loved you. Dermot's voice was thick. More than anything, more than safety, more than sense. I wish I'd known her. You do. He sat beside her, picked up one of the letters. She's in every stubborn choice you make, every time you fight when you should run, every time you choose love over survival. He looked at her. You're exactly like her, and I'm so proud of that. Kiara leaned against him, this man who wasn't her father by blood, but was in every way that mattered. Thank you, she said, for raising me, for keeping me safe, for loving you. Dermot's arm came around her shoulders. That was the easy part, love. The rest, the lies, the hiding, that's what I'm sorry for. Don't be, Kiara wiped her eyes. You did what you had to. We all did. They sat there in the quiet cottage, surrounded by ghosts and letters and the weight of choices made long ago. And Kiara realized this was her inheritance. Not money, not a name, but this. The love that had protected her, the sacrifices that had kept her alive, the truth that had finally set her free. A year after the wedding, Kiara stood in front of a courtroom, not as a victim, as a witness. The trial was for the men who'd killed her mother, the O'Connell family's enforcers. They'd been found, arrested, charged with murder. Kiara testified, told the whole story, her mother's flight, the years of hiding, the night they came. The defense tried to break her, tried to paint Eileen as a criminal, a thief, someone who'd stolen from her own family. Your mother took what wasn't hers, the lawyer said, ran from her responsibilities, hit a child who belonged to... I didn't belong to anyone. Kiara's voice cut through the courtroom. I wasn't property, neither was she. She made a choice, to leave, to live, to raise me away from people who treated family like assets to be managed. And she died for it. Not because she deserved to, but because your clients decided her life was worth less than their orders. The lawyer tried to continue, but Kiara wasn't done. You want to know what my mother stole? She stole me. From a life of being used, being controlled, being nothing but a name and a bank account, and I'm grateful every single day because she gave me something you can't take away. She gave me a choice, and I'm using it right now. I'm choosing to stand here and make sure everyone knows what you did, what they did, and that there's a price for it. The verdict came back guilty. All charges. Kiara didn't feel victorious, just tired and finished. She walked out of the courthouse, Pierce waiting on the steps. He didn't ask how it went, just took her hand and they walked to the car in silence. Is it over? She asked when they were driving away. I don't know. Pierce glanced at her. Is it? Kiara thought about that, about her mother's letters, about the inheritance she'd given away, about the empire that had fallen, about the scars they both carried. Yes, she said finally. It's over. And she meant it. 2 years after everything fell apart, Kiara stood in the greenhouse, the same one where Pierce had kissed her, where everything had started to unravel. It had been restored. Cillian had insisted, said it was important to save something beautiful from the wreckage. Kiara tended the roses, white ones, her mother's favorite, according to Dermot. She heard footsteps behind her, knew without looking it was Pierce. You're going to wear a path in the gravel, she said. Can't help it. I like watching you. Still? Always. She turned. He stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame, looking at her the way he had that first night in the Bentley, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. But something was different now, softer, earned. I have something to tell you, she said. Should I be worried? I don't know yet. She set down her gardening shears, wiped her hands on her jeans. I'm pregnant. Pierce went very still. What? 3 months. I just found out. He crossed to her in 3 long strides, hands framing her face, eyes searching hers. Are you sure? Yes? And you want this? I don't know. The honesty came easy now. I'm terrified of being a mother, of raising a child in this world, of screwing it up the way everyone screwed us up. We won't. You can't know that. No. He pulled her close, carefully, like she was something precious. But we can try. We can choose differently. Better. We can give them what we never had. Kiara's hands rested on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. Steady, strong, real. A choice, a voice, the truth. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. They stood there, in the greenhouse where lies had crumbled and truth had taken root, where everything had ended and begun. I love you, Pierce said. The words came rough, uncertain, like he'd never said them before. He hadn't. I know, Kiara smiled. I love you too. I think. Maybe. It's complicated. Everything with us is complicated. Yeah. She kissed him, soft. Sure. But it's ours. And in that moment, surrounded by white roses and glass walls and the ghosts of who they'd been, Kiara finally understood what her mother had meant. She wasn't her bloodline, wasn't her name, wasn't her inheritance. She was her choices, the people she protected, the love she gave even when the world told her not to. She was Kiara, not Vale, not O'Connell, not Gallen, just Kiara. And that was enough. The baby was born on a spring morning when rain turned to sun. A girl, dark hair, blue eyes, loud and perfect, and terrifyingly fragile. Kiara held her in the hospital room, Pierce beside her, both of them exhausted and overwhelmed and more scared than they'd ever been in any fight, any chase, any moment of violence. What do we call her? Pierce asked. Kiara looked down at her daughter, at this tiny person who'd done nothing wrong, who deserved better than the legacy they carried. Eileen, she said, after my mother. Are you sure? Yes. Kiara's finger traced the baby's cheek. She fought for me, died for me, loved me even when it cost her everything. That deserves to be remembered. Pierce nodded. His hand covered Kiara's on their daughter's tiny body. Eileen it is. And as they sat there, new parents in an old world, Kiara made a promise to her daughter, to herself. To the memory of a mother she'd barely known but carried in every choice she made. This child would know the truth, would grow up loved, seen, heard, would never be a pawn or a prize or a secret to be kept. She would be free, the way Kiara finally was. Then, 5 years later, Kiara stood on the porch of their cottage, watching Eileen chase waves on the beach below. Pierce was with her, laughing as their daughter shrieked every time the water touched her toes. Dermot sat beside Kiara, older now, grayer, but still here, still her father in every way that counted. You did good, he said. We're still figuring it out. That's all any of us do. He patted her hand. Your mum would be proud. I hope so. I know so. He stood, joints creaking. I'm going to make tea. You want some? Yeah, thanks, Dad. He went inside and Kiara stayed on the porch, watching her family play in the surf, watching the life she'd built from the ashes of everything that had burned. It wasn't perfect. Pierce still had nightmares, still carried guilt for the things he'd done, the man he'd been raised to be. Kiara still flinched at loud noises, still checked over her shoulder in crowds. They were both damaged, scarred, changed by the violence they'd survived and the choices they'd made, but they were here, together, building something new. And their daughter would grow up knowing the truth. All of it. The good and the terrible. The love and the lies. The price that had been paid for her to exist. And she would make her own choices. That was the gift. The inheritance that actually mattered. Not money, not power, not a name carved in stone. But choice. Freedom. Truth. The right to stand on your own ground and say, this is who I am. This is what I choose. And no one gets to take that from me. Kiara smiled as Pierce lifted Eileen onto his shoulders, as their daughter's laughter carried up the cliff on the sea wind. This was her story, not the one she'd been born into, the one she'd written. And it was enough. It was everything.